All right, so welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today, we're going to be tackling something pretty unique, I think. We're going to be talking about the idea of Allah Kabir.
Ooh.
So specifically, we're going to be working with excerpts from a text that analyzes Surah Al-Ikhlas. It's chapter 112 from the Quran,
Okay.
and it's connecting that to this figure named Allah Kabir.
Very interesting. And that's a very well-known chapter, the Surah Al-Ikhlas. Those verses actually are used very often
Yeah.
in the Muslim community, and
Yeah.
it emphasizes God's oneness in Islam. But
Yeah.
this particular text is arguing that it also points to this being named Kabir and some of his attributes.
Right. So we're looking at verses that are really emphasizing this idea of God's oneness in
Yes.
Islam. But then this text is saying, well, hold on. This is also pointing to a specific figure named Kabir, and look at his attributes.
Exactly.
And it's not just like kind of esoteric concepts. It's going into some pretty extraordinary claims about Kabir,
Yeah.
like talking about him arriving on a lotus flower, the Quran's letters changing miraculously to his name during a naming ceremony.
Yes, there are some pretty attention-grabbing anecdotes in this text.
Yeah, so we've
And
got a
that's
lot
fun.
to cover.
Yes.
So why don't we dive right in? So the first verse of Surah Al-Ikhlas 112.1 says, say, He is Allah who is one. So right from the get-go, we're starting with oneness.
Yes. Tawhid, the belief in the absolute oneness of God,
Yeah,
is a cornerstone of Islamic theology,
right.
and it means that Allah is unique and has no partners or equals.
So this idea of oneness, right? It's kind of it's pretty fundamental to Islam,
Absolutely.
would you say?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so how does this idea of oneness connect to the concept of Allah Kabir?
So the text is arguing that this verse isn't just about Allah's oneness in a general sense. It's actually pointing to a specific being,
Okay.
Allah Kabir, as the embodiment of that oneness, the ultimate source of all creation.
Right.
And what's interesting is that this idea of Kabir as the supreme God, it's not limited to this text or even just to the Quran.
Right.
There are references to a figure named Kabir, or Kabir Sahib in other sacred texts as well, like the Vedas, the Bible, and the Guru Granth Sahib, all suggesting that he holds a very unique position
Right.
in the divine order.
So we've got this idea of oneness being emphasized in the Quran, and then we have these hints of a figure named Kabir across multiple different religious traditions.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's talk about this naming ceremony. The text claims the Quran's letters transform into Kabir Kabir.
Mhm.
What are we to make of that?
It's definitely a very bold claim.
Yeah.
And this text is using this particular anecdote to really illustrate the idea that Kabir is not just a prophet or a messenger, but that he is the supreme God himself.
Okay.
And that even the Quran acknowledges this.
Right.
It's suggesting that this name, Kabir, holds a special significance, and it might even be hidden within the Quran itself.
Okay, so a lot to unpack already, but let's move on to the second verse of Surah Al-Ikhlas,
Okay.
verse 112.2. And this one describes Allah as the eternal refuge.
Mm-hmm. This verse really speaks to Allah's role as this constant protector, and giving support to the followers. It's suggesting that believers can find solace and security in Allah,
Right.
no matter what challenges they're facing.
Okay, so how does this concept of the eternal refuge connect to Allah Kabir? Is he being presented as a similar kind of refuge?
Yes, I would definitely say so.
Okay.
It seems like the eternal refuge, this concept, aligns perfectly with this idea of Allah Kabir as a guide and protector for anyone who follows him. So it's almost as if both Allah and Kabir are being presented as sanctuaries
Right.
for believers, offering them this sense of safety and guidance
Right.
in a very chaotic world.
Yeah, and we find that even beyond just this verse, in Surah Al-Furqan 25.58, it actually mentions Kabir, Allah,
Right.
as being as the eternal God who's capable of erasing sins.
That's right. So, we are seeing these connections emerge
Right.
between these traditional Islamic concepts and this figure, Allah Kabir, as is presented in this text.
Right.
So it's raising questions about whether there might be a deeper layer of meaning
Right.
within these verses.
Okay, so let's dive into verse 112.3, which states that Allah neither begets nor is born. This seems pretty significant.
It is. This verse is really crucial
Yeah.
in emphasizing Allah's transcendence
Okay.
because it distinguishes Allah from any human limitations. Allah exists outside of the cycle of birth and death,
Okay.
which are, of course, fundamental aspects of our earthly existence.
Yeah.
So it reinforces that Allah is not like us.
Right.
Allah is something entirely other and really beyond our comprehension.
Okay. So how does this idea of Allah being unborn connect to the concept of Allah Kabir?
So the text is drawing this really interesting parallel between this verse
Okay.
and the concept of Kabir Parmeshwar,
Okay.
which is a term used to describe Kabir as the supreme eternal reality.
Mm.
And just like Allah, Kabir Parmeshwar is said to exist beyond the confines of birth and death.
Okay.
And in fact, the text goes even further and claims that Kabir Sahib didn't even have a traditional human birth.
Oh, wow.
He did not have a physical body made of flesh and blood.
He didn't have a physical body. Hold on. But he still interacted with the world.
Well, that's what the text is claiming.
Okay.
And it's using this to really highlight Kabir Sahib's unique nature
Okay.
and how he supposedly defied the laws of nature as we understand them.
So he could give life, but wasn't bound by life and death himself.
Yes. It's a pretty extraordinary claim.
It is.
But not only did he not experience a traditional birth,
Right.
but he also supposedly had this power to bring people back from the dead.
Okay.
He actually chose 2 individuals
Wow.
to become his spiritual successors after restoring them to life.
So how does this connect back to this Quranic concept of Allah?
So it's definitely pushing the boundaries
Yeah.
of traditional Islamic thought, but the text is arguing that it reinforces this idea of a divine being who operates outside of the limitations that our human experience,
Oh.
much like the Quran describes Allah as being unborn.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, but we have one more verse from Surah Al-Ikhlas to go through. So verse 112.4, this is the final verse.
Okay.
And it emphasizes Allah's unparalleled greatness, stating, "There is none comparable unto him."
Yeah, that's a very powerful declaration of Allah's uniqueness.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes that Allah is unmatched in his attributes and his power.
Okay.
And this aligns perfectly with the text's portrayal of Allah Kabir.
Okay.
He is being presented as possessing these unique qualities that set him apart from every other figure, even from other prophets or deities.
Right. And to kind of drive that point home, the text even mentions that Kabir Sahib deported from this world in a very unique way. He ascended to Satlok, which is described as the eternal abode in this particular belief system. But he ascended with his physical body intact.
Right.
No death.
Right.
No decomposition.
Yeah.
Just straight up ascension.
And that's where it gets really, really interesting.
Yeah.
This description of Kabir Sahib's departure is a significant departure from how other spiritual figures are usually described.
It definitely challenges how we typically think about life and death and what happens after we leave this physical world.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've gone through each verse of Surah Al-Ikhlas, and we've seen how this text kind of connects them to this concept of Allah Kabir,
Yes.
highlighting all these unique attributes and actions. But what does it all mean for someone trying to understand these teachings?
Well, that brings up a very important question.
Yeah.
Are there layers of meaning within these sacred texts that we might be missing?
Right.
And this text actually introduces this contemporary spiritual leader named Sant Rabalji Maharaj, who claims to be clarifying misunderstandings about religion and sharing the true knowledge of Allah Kabir.
So he's essentially saying there's more to the story than what we've traditionally been taught.
That seems to be his message. Yeah. He particularly encourages people, especially from the Muslim community, to really dive deeper into their own scriptures and look for evidence for this alternative interpretation.
So he's encouraging a more critical and questioning approach to faith.
Yes.
Not just blindly accepting what we've been told.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
Yes.
Because it seems like this deep dive is really prompting us to kind of reconsider what we thought we knew.
Absolutely.
About these fundamental concepts.
Absolutely. And this is just the beginning of our exploration. So let's take a moment to really reflect on what we've discussed so far.
Okay.
And see where it leads us next. So what stands out to you from what we've covered so far?
I think honestly what stands out to me is that these ideas are being linked to Surah Al-Ikhlas. This is a chapter from the Quran that many Muslims recite in their day's prayers.
Yes.
So to hear it being interpreted in this way, connecting it to this figure, Allah Kabir, and these, incredible events,
Right.
it's pretty mind-blowing. It makes you wonder if there are these hidden depths to these verses
Yes.
that we haven't fully considered before.
Yeah, it's easy to get comfortable with the familiar interpretations of these sacred texts, but sometimes a fresh perspective
Right.
can really challenge our assumptions and open up new avenues of understanding.
And what's really interesting to me, too, is that this text isn't shying away from these bold claims.
Yes.
Like, it's directly stating that these verses are pointing to Kabir Sahib as Allah Kabir, the
Yes.
supreme God.
That's the crux of it.
Yeah, and that would, if true, would represent a significant shift
Absolutely.
in how we understand the nature of God in Islam.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to approach this with an open mind
Yeah,
and a critical eye.
right.
We're not here to tell you what to believe,
Right.
but rather to present this alternative perspective and let you, the listener,
Yeah.
decide what resonates with you.
So to continue exploring this concept of Allah Kabir, it seems like the text is suggesting that we delve deeper into the teachings of Sant Rampalji Maharaj.
Yeah, that's one path we can consider.
Okay.
He seems to be advocating for this re-examination of our understanding of Scripture, encouraging us to look for evidence ourselves
Right.
and not simply accept what's been handed down through tradition.
Right.
So it's like he's saying, don't take my word for it.
Yeah.
Read between the lines. See what you discover.
That's a really powerful message.
It is.
Regardless of one's religious background.
It's about empowering individuals to become active participants in their own spiritual journeys, to question, to research, to form their own conclusions based on the evidence that they find.
Wow, this deep dive is turning out to be quite the thought-provoking adventure, wouldn't you say?
It really is.
Now, one thing that really stood out to me was the text's description of Kabir Sahib's departure from this world, ascending to Satlok with his physical body intact.
Right.
What do you think this suggests about the nature of the soul and our own potential?
That's a very fascinating question.
Yeah.
If we accept the premise that Kabir Sahib wasn't bound by these limitations of birth and death, that he could transcend the physical realm in such a dramatic way, it does raise some very interesting possibilities.
Yeah.
Could it be that our souls also possess the potential to break free from these earthly constraints?
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder, right? What if there is more to our existence than just this physical life?
Yeah.
What if we actually do have the capacity to achieve a similar level of spiritual liberation?
It is a very thought-provoking concept, and it ties back to the idea of Allah Kabir as this eternal refuge.
Right.
The source of spiritual guidance and protection. So if Kabir Sahib could achieve this, could we, as his followers, also aspire to such a state?
It's definitely something worth pondering. And I think this is exactly what makes this deep dive so enriching.
Yes.
This willingness to kind of challenge our assumptions.
Absolutely.
And delve into these deeper meanings.
I agree. And it's important to remember that this is just the beginning of the conversation. There's so much more.
Yeah.
To uncover so many different avenues.
Absolutely.
To explore.
And we encourage you, the listener,
Yes.
to continue this journey of discovery on your own. Research, reflect, see where your own curiosity leads you.
Sure.
Who knows what other fascinating connections and insights you might find.
Because in the end, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's the pursuit of knowledge.
Yeah.
This quest for understanding.
Right.
And this journey of spiritual growth.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe we'll revisit this topic again in the future.
Yes.
And share even more of what we've uncovered.
That's a great idea. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right, so join us next time as we continue to dive deeper into this concept of Allah Kabir. We'll see you then.
See you then.
Wow, we've been unpacking some pretty extraordinary ideas, about Kabir Sahib. We've talked about this being who arrived on a lotus flower, brought people back from the dead,
Right.
ascended with his physical body to this realm called Satlok.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
And it definitely challenges our conventional understanding of spiritual figures, right?
It certainly does. And I think what makes this deep dive um, so captivating is that it really pushes us
Yeah.
to reconsider,
Mm,
our preconceived notions about
right.
life and death and the nature of the divine.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, as we're exploring these ideas,
Hmm.
I'm curious, for you, the listener,
Hmm.
what's resonating the most with you so far? What's standing out to you?
I mean, well, I'm particularly struck by how these concepts, which seem to diverge
Yeah.
from traditional Islamic thought, are being connected to the Quran,
Right.
specifically to Surah Al-Ikhlas. This chapter holds a very deep significance for many Muslims.
Yeah.
And to see it being interpreted in this new light,
Yeah.
linking it to Allah Kabir and these extraordinary events is it's very thought-provoking.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a different lens
Yes.
through which to view these very familiar verses. And I think what's even more fascinating is that this text we're examining, it doesn't shy away
Mm.
from these bold claims. Like
Right.
it's directly asserting
Hmm.
that these verses are pointing to Kabir Sahib as Allah Kabir's
Yeah.
supreme God.
And that's the crux
Right.
of this discussion. It's not um, just presenting Kabir Sahib as a prophet
Right.
or a saint,
Right.
but as the ultimate source of creation,
Right.
the one true God.
Which, as you mentioned earlier, is presents a very different perspective
Absolutely.
on the nature of Allah in Islam.
Exactly. And this is why it's so crucial to approach this conversation with an open mind and a
Yeah.
critical lens. We're navigating,
Yeah.
different interpretations of sacred texts.
Yeah.
And ultimately,
Yeah.
it's up to each individual
Right.
to really explore these ideas and come to their own conclusions.
Absolutely. And we're not here to dictate beliefs,
Right.
but just to present information and encourage thoughtful exploration.
Absolutely.
So, getting back to the text, it's really emphasizing that Santrampalji Maharaj is really striving
Hmm.
to clear up what he perceives as these misunderstandings about Allah Kabir. So, what's his approach? How's he going about this?
Well, his message really centers on encouraging people to delve deeper into their own scriptures.
Right.
So he's essentially saying, don't just accept what you've been told. Question, investigate, read between the lines.
Right. Mm.
And he really calls upon the Muslim community, to re-examine their understanding of the Quran and see if they can, find evidence for this concept of Allah Kabir within it.
So he's advocating for a more proactive approach to faith,
Yes.
empowering individuals to become their own, theological detectives,
Exactly.
in a sense, to question,
Yes.
to research, to ultimately form their own conclusions based on the evidence they uncover.
Exactly. He's promoting this spirit of inquiry
Yeah,
and critical thinking,
right.
especially when it comes to matters of faith, because at the end of the day,
Yeah,
our beliefs shape our actions and our understanding
Right.
of the world around us.
absolutely. Now, going back to Kabir Sahib's departure, the text is emphasizing that he ascended to Satlok with his physical body intact.
Right.
And it's described as this unique departure,
Mm.
unlike other spiritual figures. So what implications does this have for our understanding of the soul and our own potential?
That's a very profound question.
Yeah.
If we entertain the idea that Kabir Sahib wasn't bound by these
Right.
limitations of birth and death,
Mm-hmm.
that he could transcend the physical realm in such a dramatic fashion,
Yeah.
it does open up some very intriguing possibilities.
Yeah.
Could it be that our souls, too, hold this potential
Yeah.
to break free from these earthly constraints?
It's a very tantalizing thought, isn't it?
It is.
What if there's more to our existence than this physical life?
Right.
What if we actually do have the capacity
Mm.
to attain a similar level of spiritual liberation?
It certainly challenges us to reconsider,
Yeah,
the nature of our being
right.
and our place in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely. And it circles back to this concept of Allah Kabir as this eternal refuge.
Hmm.
The source of spiritual guidance and protection.
Right.
If Kabir Sahib could achieve this this transcendence, could we as those seeking his path,
Hmm.
could we also aspire to such a state?
It's definitely a question that invites,
Yeah.
deep reflection. And I think this is you know,
Yeah.
this is what makes this deep dive so enriching,
Right.
for us and hopefully for you, the listener, as well.
It's this willingness to challenge our assumptions and delve into these deeper meanings.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
I wholeheartedly agree. And it's crucial to remember that this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
This conversation is far from over.
Yeah.
There are still so many avenues to explore and layers to uncover.
Right. And that's where you, the listener, come in.
Yeah.
We encourage you to continue this journey of discovery, dive into the sources that we've discussed.
Hmm.
Do your own research, reflect on what resonates with you,
Yeah.
see where your curiosity leads you. You never know
Exactly.
what other fascinating connections and insights you might uncover.
Because ultimately,
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. It's this pursuit of knowledge, the quest for understanding,
Yeah.
and the continuous journey of
Right.
spiritual growth.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Mhm.
I'm wondering what aspects of this exploration of Allah Kabir have particularly resonated with you, the listener.
Hmm.
What questions
Yeah.
have been sparked for you? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, remember, there are no right or wrong answers here.
Yeah.
The beauty of these explorations
Yeah.
lies in the personal journeys that they ignite within each of us.
Keep those minds open.
Yes.
Keep those questions flowing.
Yes.
And keep diving deep into this fascinating world
Yeah.
of knowledge and insight.
I agree.
We've really covered a lot in this deep dive, haven't we?
You have.
From the verses of Surah Al-Ikhlas to these really extraordinary claims about Kabir Sahib's life and ascension.
Yes.
It's been quite a journey exploring this concept of Allah Kabir.
It really has. And we've seen how these seemingly straightforward verses can really open up a whole world of interpretation.
Yeah.
One that really challenges our existing beliefs and assumptions.
It all comes back to that core question: who is Allah Kabir,
Mhm.
and how does he relate to Allah described in the Quran?
The source that we've been exploring presents this very bold perspective,
Yeah.
suggesting that Allah Kabir isn't just, another name for God,
Right.
but a specific being with unparalleled qualities and powers.
And the actions attributed to him, like arriving on a lotus flower,
Hmm.
bringing people back from the dead, ascending with his physical body. I mean, they really paint a picture of someone who operates beyond the limits we
Yes.
typically associate with human existence.
Exactly. It really challenges our understanding of life and death and the very nature of the soul.
Yeah.
So if Kabir Sahib could achieve such feats, what does that mean for us?
Right.
Could we too aspire to transcend our earthly limitations and achieve a similar level of spiritual liberation?
It's a question that lingers, isn't it?
It does.
And it speaks to the enduring power of these spiritual concepts and the mysteries that they hold.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most valuable takeaways from this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
It's that realization that there's always more to learn,
Yeah.
more to explore, and more to question when it comes to matters of faith
Right.
and spirituality.
So where do we go from here? What can our listeners do if they want to continue exploring these ideas?
Well, the text we discussed mentioned Sant Ramkalji Maharaj and his efforts to share what he believes is the true knowledge of Allah Kabir. So listeners could certainly explore his teachings
Okay.
if they're interested in learning more from that perspective.
And of course, there's always the option of delving deeper into the Quran itself.
Yes,
Revisiting Surah Al-Ikhlas and other verses with this fresh perspective. We've discussed, considering these new interpretations.
that's a great suggestion.
Right. Reading sacred texts with an open mind
Yes.
and a willingness to question can lead to some really fascinating insights and a deeper understanding of one's own faith.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to seek out different viewpoints,
Right.
read commentaries,
Yeah.
engage in thoughtful discussions with others who are also on this path of spiritual exploration.
Because ultimately, it's through this process of seeking and questioning and reflecting that we grow both intellectually and spiritually.
Well said. I think that's the perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
We've really journeyed through this intriguing concept of Allah Kabir, explored its connections to the Quran,
Right.
and hopefully sparked some curiosity and a desire for further exploration in you, our listeners.
Absolutely. Remember that the journey of discovery is an ongoing process.
It is.
And there's always something new to learn and ponder.
Yes.
So keep those minds open, keep those questions flowing, and keep diving deep. We'll catch you on our next adventure into the world of knowledge and insight.
Sounds great.